Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over potential tropical cyclone 9, which would be Isaias if they were to be named, and that would be tropical storm Isaias, and that would be in the Atlantic. It's currently westward of the Leeward Islands, and it's going to be making its way northward throughout the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and potentially making a landfall with Florida. We'll be talking about that in today's video. Also, we're going to be going over my potential, or my personal forecasted cone track for the storm, as well as my personal intensity guidance forecast, and we'll look at a couple of models as of what they're showing with the storm. Now, here is the current National Hurricane Center, or the National Weather Service page. They have flood watches for parts of Wyoming and South Dakota, as well as an area over parts of Oklahoma and Arkansas and extreme southern Texas. They also have excessive heat warnings and heat advisories for parts of Nevada, Arizona, even a little bit of Utah and into California. Another area there for parts of the Northwest and parts of Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington, with some excessive heat warnings and heat advisories. Also, something I just want to point out: an excessive heat warning for example, the Northwest only requires actual temperatures over 100 degrees. Excessive heat warnings for the Southwest would require actual temperatures of over 115 degrees or so, or over 110. So heat advisories and excessive heat warnings, when you see excessive heat warning, for example, over parts of the northern plains, it's not the same as an excessive heat warnings over the desert Southwest. They are made differently, and they have different requirements depending on your individual region. So I just want to point that out right there, because it can be a little bit confusing. Now, here is your current National Hurricane Center 5-day graphical outlook. They have potential tropical cyclone 9 there, which is west of the Leeward Islands. Currently has a 90% chance of development within the next 48 hours and the next 5 days here, and it's going to track somewhat like this and kind of just move up the Caribbean, and then potentially the real big question is whether this goes into the Gulf or it stays in the Atlantic. If it goes into the Gulf, it will interact with an area of wind shear, and that will really weaken the system, and you won't even see really too much out of it. But if it does go up the East Coast, then you will most likely see even more development as it's heading up the East Coast with those warm sea surface temperatures. And now, here is your 5-day graphical outlook for the National Hurricane Center for the Eastern Pacific, and they have one disturbance which has a 0% chance of developing just southwest of Mexico there. And then if we look at the Central Pacific, all we have currently is Douglas, which is currently at about 175 degrees west right there. So let's start talking about potential tropical cyclone 9. If you are curious why it's just potential tropical cyclone 9 and not tropical storm Isaias by this point, even though they have found 40 knot winds, 45 knot winds sustained, it is just because they haven't found a good area of closed circulation, which is what is needed for a tropical storm to be formed. So they actually are going in with the hurricane hunters, and they're trying to find any sort of defined circulation, but they just can't find it. They can't find a defined low pressure system. So until they find that, it's going to stay as potential tropical cyclone 9. Once they find that, it'll most likely automatically be upgraded to tropical storm Isaias. Now, here is the key messages for this storm. You can go check this out at hurricanes.gov, or you can just pause the video right here and read them out if you are interested. Now, here is currently where Isaias, or a tropical cyclone 9, is. It currently has sustained winds of about 40 knots and gusts to about 50 knots here, and it's actually a very large wind field when you actually look at the map, and I'll show you that in just one moment. So it's also at 15.6 north by about 62.8 degrees west, and it has a minimum central pressure of about 1005 millibars. Now, here is your actual infrared satellite, and this is just a frame of it, just one frame. But you can, it's very, very hard to kind of pick out any type of closed circulation. On the northern side of this, that's where you have the strongest winds and the most intense thunderstorms over that region. But you don't have a closed circulation anywhere, really, and until you get that, you can't have a named storm, or at least until you have a defined low pressure system, you can't really have a named storm. So we're gonna have to wait for this to kind of close off before we can say for certain or officially say it's Isaias. Now, Here is the cone of uncertainty, and that yellow or orangish area right here, this is your wind field right there. So that is actually how big the wind field is, and that is very large compared to the other storms that we've been seeing, especially on the northern side of this. The X is where the storm currently is. So on the northern side of it, you can see that we have a very large tropical storm wind extent that goes about 100 to 200 miles out from the center. Now, it's going to stay as a tropical storm all the way until it looks like Monday at least, if this doesn't continue to move up north. And I think by tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we'll have a lot more information on whether this will go into the Gulf or into the Atlantic. If it goes up the East Coast, it'll strengthen a lot more and probably impact North and South Carolina. If it goes into the Gulf of Mexico, most likely it'll go to western Florida and then impact areas near the Big Bend of Florida. If it doesn't do that, or if it does do that, it'll most likely be very, very weak by that point, and it wouldn't really even be named by that point, most likely. We have tropical storm warnings up in that blue shaded region for parts that also includes parts of the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and also Puerto Rico, as well as some of the northern Leeward and Windward Islands. Now, we also have for parts of the southern Bahamas, we have some tropical storm watches in effect, as well as for the southwestern coast of the Dominican Republic in that yellow shaded region, we have some tropical storm watches in effect. Now, here is your arrival time and probability of seeing tropical storm force wind speeds, and you see everywhere pretty much on the northern side of this, anywhere in this general region has a decent shot of seeing some tropical storm winds, and I would say it's almost guaranteed that you will. And whether you get impacted with an officially named tropical storm or not, that's still to be seen. But you will most likely see tropical storm winds. Now, it's a little bit more uncertain, especially the track and the timing of this as you get further to the north, as you start to near the Bahamas, Cuba, Florida. That's really where it gets a lot more uncertain, and it's a lot harder to pinpoint. Right now, they give it about a 40 to 50% chance for that region. Now, here are your chances of seeing 58 mile per hour wind speeds, and you see the southwestern part of Puerto Rico has a very slim chance of about 5 to 10% to see that happen. Now, here are some of your modeled guidance. We're going to go over some of your ensemble models as well. Now, you see the main models all have this either very close to the eastern shore of Florida or even westward from there into the Gulf of Mexico or right over Florida. So that's what the main models do. Now, something that's interesting is that the ensemble models actually have a completely different take on this. Now, here's what the ensemble models are actually showing. This is your American ensemble models, and they are showing most of the models actually bring this to the east of Florida, and this would lead to a much more robust solution. You do have still a couple of models that want to bring it to the western part of Florida, but still, that's not the most likely scenario according to the American ensembles, and that is going to ride up the east coast and then potentially curve as it starts to hit the mid-Atlantic by that point. But that is still too far out to say. But really, something that's interesting is how different the ensembles are from the main models. The main models pretty much all have it west of Florida, and the ensembles pretty much all have it east of Florida, and that's really the big discrepancy with this storm. Now, here is your Canadian ensembles, and they are bringing this mostly to the west of Florida, but some of these still bring this to the east of Florida by a good margin. Now, here is your intensity guidance, and I'll actually have my own intensity guidance at the end of the video. It currently is a tropical storm, and it should stay as a tropical storm for the next few days, and it'll really be interesting to see if this does go west of Florida. It'll most likely by about the 120 to 168 hour time frame become a tropical depression or below tropical storm status by that point. If it goes to the Atlantic side, that's when you could probably see or potentially see a revving up of your wind speeds. Now, here is your some of your sea surface temperatures, and these are your anomalies. And you see we do have 2 to 5 degrees above average sea surface temperatures, especially off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, and that would be about anywhere from 4 4 to 8 degrees or 9 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. So that is well above normal. For the Caribbean, we actually have a decent area of moderately above average sea surface temperatures. And then where Hannah track, that's where you have some cooler than normal sea surface temperatures. And that's also another reason why if it goes to Florida and west of Florida, that it'll most likely weaken. We'll also go over a couple more environmental ingredients that are needed for the storm to really strengthen. Now, here is your actual sea surface temperatures, and this 26-degree line, this yellow line, you've been seeing it narrowly creep up. I've been showing this map pretty much every single video, and you can see it narrowly move up and move up. That's the 80-degree Fahrenheit line, and what that indicates is the potential to support a hurricane or some sort of tropical storm. Now, of course, you really want those warmer than normal sea surface temperatures. You would like to have 85 to 90 degrees sea surface temperatures, but even 80 degrees sea surface temperatures are sufficient for sustaining a hurricane or a tropical storm. And you do see that now it is touching parts of New Jersey and the mid-Atlantic coast, and eventually this will be touching parts of the southern New England coast and moving all the way up the east coast. So that'll be something interesting to track as this 26-degree line continues to move further north. Now here's your ocean heat content, and you see we do have values between 50 and 100 for that ocean heat content. Now, something I want to show you guys is the Hmong model, and I'll also show you the HWRF model and the GFS model. Three different solutions on what could happen. Now, here is the Hmong model, and it's kind of an interesting model. All these models, they are following the storm, so the storm is staying at the center of the page while the area around it is what's actually changing. It looks a little bit weird, but this is what we have available. So the Hmong model has actually a fairly decent storm. It moves south of Puerto Rico and then kind of curves north of the Dominican Republic, and it stays as a very, very strong storm, a very, very strong tropical storm, maybe even a hurricane by this point. It does have some hurricane force wind speeds, moves through the southern Bahamas. This will be by Friday, and then as we get to Saturday, it starts to move throughout the northern Bahamas and then impacts parts of the eastern part of Florida, then moves away from Florida and starts to re-intensify again, and there is the end of the model. Now, here is the HWRF model, and this one moves throughout south. It starts south of Puerto Rico. This would be by Thursday. Now, by as we get to Friday, it's north of Haiti, and then it starts to intensify over the Bahamas, and then it starts to get to a fairly strong Category 1, and then moves further north into the Bahamas, staying as a Category 1, and then moves into Florida, where it drastically weakens. Now let's look at one more model, the GFS model, and this is the weakest out of all of them. Now here it's over the northern Leeward Islands, then moves south of Puerto Rico, and then it moves northward. It's still sustaining a decent tropical storm by this point. This would be by Friday, and then by Saturday, it's not even a tropical storm by this point, and it's moving west of Florida, where you're actually going to encounter some wind shear. Now, here's your wind shear that I was just talking about, and you see if it does go west of Florida, that's where you're encountering the highest wind shear with this, and that will also help weaken this storm as well. If it moves overland, of course it's going to weaken just because it can't use the water for energy. Now, here is also some dry air that we are going to have in place, and this will weaken it no matter where it's going. It's just that there is drier air over the Gulf of Mexico than there is over the Atlantic, and that'll help it strengthen if it does go along the Atlantic. Currently, the storm is actually at this point would be right around here, while on the eastern and northern side you're actually seeing most of the water or the water vapor, but that water vapor is moving it northward, but it's not bringing all the moisture to the center of the storm. It's actually bringing it east of the storm, and that's what's gonna kind of weaken the storm a little bit as well. Now, let's start talking about my personal forecast. Now, this is only for the 29th to the 2nd of August, so this is a 5-day time frame, and currently the low pressure system west of the Leeward Islands, and it's going to be making its way north and west from there, most likely touching parts of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, potentially parts of Haiti and Cuba, and then also moving throughout parts of the Bahamas. Most likely, if it were to strengthen anywhere, it would be the Bahamas. If it, even if it doesn't go west of Florida, or even if it does go west of Florida, it'll most likely still go through the Bahamas, and the warm Bahama waters will actually help it strengthen a little bit. If it goes up the East Coast, we have again a much stronger storm on our hands. Now, here is your intensity guidance that I was talking about, and again, it's currently at tropical storm strength. It's a middle end or to weak tropical storm, and it's gonna get a little bit stronger as we go throughout the day today into tomorrow within the 48 to 72 hour time frame, and then by 72 to 96 hours it starts to weaken a little bit, and then by 96 to 120 hours, depending on where exactly this tracks, this could definitely weaken or intensify greatly if it starts to move up the South Carolina coast and moves into the Carolinas. It'll definitely strengthen by that point. If it moves west of Florida, it'll most likely weaken. Now, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.